Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel, Logically Literate. Today I'd like to start a 5-part series on making a Python web server using Flask and SQAlchemy. This web server can be used in a variety of ways. You could use it for a smart home application, a car application, or possibly a remote API server for a mobile app that you might be wanting to develop. My goal for this series is to give you the tools needed to create a web server using Python in a very easy to do way. So let's jump into it. I'm going to go over a quick outline here and then we'll start with the getting started part. So to start it off, getting started, we'll talk about that a little bit later, but basically it's going to be some installs, the IDE I'm going to use, and the overall design for this web server. In the next video, we'll talk about setting up the Flask skeleton, and we'll go over some details of Flask that you may need to know to be successful using it. In the third video, we'll talk about building the first page using HTML and JavaScript and possibly some Jinja to fill some data into that page. In the fourth video, we'll look into SQLAlchemy, specifically using the SQLite database, which is a file-based database, and we'll see how to persist the data between uses of this server. Lastly, we'll talk about interfacing with other devices and services such as OBD2, chatbots, or maybe even a third-party API. I won't be going into too many details on that fifth video, more so just saying what you could do and how I would implement it myself. So let's get started. First off, you'll need to download Anaconda 3.6. To do this, you can download 3.7 and then revert back to 3.6. I'll have in the description the command to use to revert. I tried to use 3.7, but there was a DLL issue with the SSL library. So 3.6 will be the one we'll use for this tutorial. Next, you'll want to download PyCharms. You can get the free version on their website. It's my preferred IDE for Python. And then next, I'd like to talk about the system design. So the basis here is to have a web server that runs on some device and can store some data, and then have a browser that can be either on that same device or on a remote device over a network. That network can be a Wi-Fi network or the internet. The browser could be any number of browsers. It could be Safari, Chrome, Firefox. For this specific project, I'll be using Chrome on a computer. I will also be running the server on my computer. You could run the server on a Raspberry Pi and then over the network connect to it via a browser on a phone or on some other device. That is an option, and I'll show you how to do that too towards the end here. At the top, you'll notice other interfaces. So this is where we could connect to like an OBD2 port through a Python library. We could talk over the internet to another third-party API or to a chatbot or something like that. And we'll look into that more in the fifth video. And then you'll notice there's the database there. That line there will be how we use SQAlchemy to persist the data. So every time you log into your browser, you'll be able to see the same data you saw before or the same data that you updated before. So without further ado, we'll get into a little bit of setup. So for Anaconda, you'll want to just Google Anaconda, and that'll take you to their website here. And then you can hit download up in the corner here, or you can scroll down and download here. For some reason, mine always wants to download the Mac version, so I click on the Windows option here again and start the download. Once this finishes, you'll just double-click it, run through, and just accept all the defaults, and at that point, you'll have it installed. So I'll go ahead and cut to it being installed, and then I'll talk to you about reverting your version. Okay, so to revert your version, first you'll want to pull up an Anaconda prompt. I suggest when you install for all users. And if that's the case, you'll need to run as administrator. You'll get a pop-up like this, and you'll just want to hit yes on that. Then you'll get a window. Hopefully you saw that pop-up. I don't know if that came through on the recording, but you'll get a window like this, and you'll want to type in this command, conda install python equals 3.6. This will revert you back to Python 3.6. Go ahead and hit enter on that after being in an administrator prompt. If you're not in an administrator prompt, you'll get some permission issues. So it'll go through and look at some things, figure out what it needs to do, and then it'll say, you need to change these things, yes or no. Currently, I got an unexpected error. That's because I've already done this. So we'll go ahead and just leave this for now. I'll say no. But what you'll want to do is say yes. After you say yes, it'll take probably 5-10 minutes, depending on your computer, to download and install all those libraries. After that, we can go ahead and start looking at the IDE. I've already downloaded PyCharms, but you can just go to their website here. If you're a student, you can get the professional version, which is slightly better, although not needed for this. One of my favorite things about the professional version is you can do remote deployment and remote testing. So you could have like a Raspberry Pi on your network, and you could go over the Wi-Fi from your computer, program it, and run code on it. So you just want to hit download now and get the community edition. Unless you're a student, you can get the professional edition after you create a student account. It doesn't take long to do. So once you download that, you'll install it, accept defaults, and you'll have PyCharms. So that completes this video. Next video, we'll talk about starting up with a Flask skeleton and all about Flask. So stay tuned. Thanks.